that's the thing. They do provide a product or a service. Your NBN, your phone plan is a service. If it doesn't meet the basic needs there under the consumer guarantees, then they've got to cough up. They've got to actually get something done. And this is typically what applies when it comes to consumer protection. You could get a refund, you could get a cancel. You're probably not locked in any contracts, but if you are, you could have very good cause now to get out of it. And the big thing is, will we be compensated? So Optus have actually said, well, they haven't said no, they won't compensate it. It's on the table, but exactly what format is still to be decided. So speaking to the Telecommunication Ombudsman yesterday, we had 1 million complaints to telco last financial year. So we're not over this. So there are a couple of things that needs to be done. First of all, we keep hearing you've got to keep receipts. Well, how do you keep receipts and so on? You know, where do I get
Credit
those?
card.
Well, you also emails or customer complaints, keep a record of that. Have a look at your takings last Wednesday, compare it to this Wednesday. Coffee shops, most of the businesses are done in the morning.
Because you're going to have to demonstrate that you've had a loss of income as a result of that specific
Absolutely.
thing.
And the Ombudsman's also said if you did anything to mitigate it, document that, because that's like brownie points there that you can put down and say, look, I try to do that. So, yes, gather your records, contact Optus. I did call Optus yesterday. They had nothing other to offer me than that number. And then the Telecommunication Ombudsman's number there. They can actually help you with what is your loss. They've got business loss, non-financial loss and financial loss that you can go under.
Well, the communication has undoubtedly been terrible, but they have a corporate responsibility here as well. They're a big player in the market in Australia.
They are, and this just goes to show that, you know, one goes down and they're not the largest. Imagine if two went down. Are we ready for a cashless society here? So the big problem with small businesses yesterday is they couldn't get cash. My tip here is, I spoke to the 4 majors yesterday, there are some options there that you can get through if your services go down. So, for example, ANZ and the Commonwealth Bank, they've got dual SIM FPOS terminals. So if Optus goes down, you can switch to Telstra or vice versa. So ask your provider what is available in situations like this.
What if you're a business, and we heard from so many businesses who just couldn't deal yesterday? How do they demonstrate they've had a loss of income if they're more cash-oriented business?
OK, so well, if they're cash, then hopefully they got the cash through in that regard, because that was the only thing that was kind of working yesterday. But to prove your income loss will be as simple as what was your takings this time last week versus where is it now? And so just document that and have that ready to go. You could actually now contact Optus. If they're not going to respond back to you, then go to the Telecommunication Ombudsman.
When I was saying that cash-oriented business, I meant all the Greek businesses, my friends. Like, how do they demonstrate?
We were fine yesterday. We had a busy day.
Well, that's why I reckon don't go all digital. We need cash.
Well, this is the argument now. Can I just say here, when you look at the share price for Optus, which is owned by Singapore Telecommunications, that dropped remarkably. Telstra went up. Do take care what you wish for. There were lines out there for people going to Telstra or Vodafone. You don't want a situation where Telstra becomes the biggest. It is already, and then the price movement there happens. Look around for some good deals, and my mate Trevor did say to me this morning that, you know, maybe look at things like Boost that still operate under Telstra, so you can negotiate that.
Your mate Trevor is coming up.
I know. I can feel him right next to me.
His eyes boring into
It's not that close.
Yeah, here you go. Well,
He's over there.
It's 8 o'clock. AM, that breaking news on the catastrophic technical fault that brought Optus to its knees. In the last hour, the federal government announcing it will launch a formal review into the incident that left more than a third of the country in the dark without critical communication services and infrastructure.
Overnight, the Optus boss ruling out any offer of compensation for customers, instead indicating they'll be rewarded for their patience. And 24 hours on from the outage, still no explanation from Optus as to what caused the chaos, being called the worst outage in Australia's history. Our Today team is following all the new developments. Let's start with Fiona Willan, with that breaking news in Parliament House. Fee, the government has Optus in its crosshairs.
Yes, Sarah, the Communications Minister has described the impact of this as particularly concerning. Michelle Rowland has confirmed in a statement that she'll ask her department to launch a review, saying it is critical the government conducts a process to identify the lessons to be learned from yesterday's outage, and it is critical that industry and governments take stock following large-scale outages, given no network is immune. Now, we also had the Government Services Minister, Bill Shorten, on the show a short time ago.
We're going to review what's happened, because if it can happen once, it can happen again. But the reality is that just saying that there's a technical problem. The punters have worked that out. We want to know how it could happen. We want to know how we make sure it doesn't happen again.
Now, the regulator is also investigating whether the telco broke any rules around the handling of emergency calls. During the outage, Optus landline phones couldn't connect to 000 and some mobiles had the same problem. We will be hearing from the Communications Minister on the program shortly. Sarah?
Fee, thank you. Let's turn to Today correspondent Lara Vella now. Lara, understandably, customers are furious.
Understandably so, Carl. And isn't it ironic that a telecommunications service has utterly failed to do the one thing that it should be doing, communicate with its customers, following one of the worst outages that the country has ever experienced. We had 10 million people right across the country impacted, 400,000 of them small businesses. And for those wondering this morning if perhaps you're going to get a refund or even compensation, think again, with the company all but ruling that out this morning, telling News Corp that if they were to offer some sort of compensation, it would equate to less than $2 per customer. At this stage, it is very unclear how they have come up with that number. But obviously, that is going to be cold comfort for so many businesses around the country who were unable to process payments, or individuals who couldn't even get in touch with 000.
Just furious because we couldn't do any ordering for the store for today and all that, so we had to try and find phones that would work. So so that was the main problem. We just couldn't get no contact with anyone. I'm just frustrated, that's all. So yeah, not happy.
Yesterday, Optus, the share price, it tumbled 5%. As for Telstra, Carl, it ended in the green, up 2%.
Lara, thank you.
All right, let's bring in Today tech expert Trevor Long, who's in the studio. Trev, good to see you again. We've never seen anything like this before. How are they not being able to explain the situation to us?
I don't understand it at all. So I was looking back at some data from previous outages. Telstra had big outages before, and they had an outage at, let's say, 10 o'clock in the morning. By 11:30, they were telling us what it was, and then it still took hours to rectify. But I think we were okay with it because we knew what they were working towards. This is all about letting us know that you know what's going on. Right now, it feels like Optus doesn't know what's going on in their own business, despite the fact that they clearly do. Otherwise, how do they fix it?
And if you don't know what it is, then how do you stop it, as Bill Shorten pointed out?
And that's the critical thing. Bill made amazing points. We need to know what it was, and we need to know how to prevent it from happening again, because it's a fundamental failure of their entire business, not just their network. And if I'm a customer, I want to know how you're going to stop that happening again. And the CEO was very blasé about the fact that it was up within a day. What? That's not acceptable at all. This should be few and far between. It shouldn't be the kind of thing that anyone expects to happen again.
It was a lesson in terrible PR yesterday.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's see what happens today. Good on you, mate. Thank you. Brooke.
Hey there, Today fans. Sarah and...
What's my name again?
Oh my goodness, Carl.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel, though. Subscribe now for more news, special reports and amazing Aussie stories.
And Carl misbehaving,
Whoa,
of course.
that never happens.
Always happens.
What's she talking about?
Always happens.